That's
the whole
evil, man. Those poor kids
is
as Man
your very
United
top
fans, they're going to
person.
suffer.
Dan, so because you originally said about me making that face and that, the fact of the matter is, we've had, and I agree, and it ain't a flex that we're on the same points as you, but I agree, so far, apart from the last 3 games, we've been pretty bad this season. And we've been missing in players, and we're on them same points, and we are only 7 points off Liverpool, who have been amazing this season, right? So this is when I say your thing's a little bit disingenuous, because I'm telling you now, if at the same time we lost Odegaard, you had lost Caicedo, yeah, that is your best midfielder, and I'd argue that Odegaard's our best midfielder. Yeah, if we'd lost them both at the same time for the same period of time, you would not be on the same points as us right now. And I know we're ahead of you in the thing. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying you'll end up catching up. You're talking right now as well. I think we'll address these at the end of the season. Some of this depth in our team. You've got more depth than us, okay? Some of these players that you're naming, are they good enough to win you leagues? I don't think so. I don't think having like João Felix instead of Palmer for a long period of the season makes you be able to win the title, the same as having Cole Palmer. So I do think that it's the same thing. Yes, you've got a bit more depth than us. I agree. Of course, you've spent all that money. You've got all them players. But I do think that none of these players that you've signed, like what we get told about our players, none of them really have proven that they can go and win a Premier League title.
Well, your players haven't either, have they?
No, I agree. But once again, I'm saying that. But once again, I agree.
We're like a 2 year. We're in 2 years into this redevelopment, and where we've got rid of a lot of players. And what I'm saying is that if a player like Cole Palmer's missing, or a player like Cole Palmer's been playing, but he actually hasn't been at the level everyone sort of thought he was, and people were saying it's about time Cole Palmer started scoring. We were still drawing against you. We were still getting results that were capable of keeping Chelsea in second place, even when Cole Palmer wasn't performing. If last season Cole Palmer had gone through a quiet spell and wasn't performing, Chelsea may have been in a relegation battle at one point of the season, because we were 12th, right? So that's where it shows that this summer we've recruited João Felix to make sure that we've got that gap. If Cole Palmer isn't performing, we have another level before we then have to promote a youth academy player.
I hear that. My rebuttal to it is literally is what I just said about the fact is what shows me that we're further ahead than you is that we are still in that title race, because I think you're also in the title race. That's my answer to Terry's question, by the way. Yes, you are in the title race right now. With having a poor season so far, with injuries, we've been poor in that, and we're still in the title race. Whereas if you'd got the injuries and were playing as poor as we were, I believe that you'd be 10.
But we've had injuries as well.
But it's not like we haven't had injuries. Yeah, hang on.
The Premier League.
Reece James is one of Chelsea's best players.
My point is, we literally have our players make so many fundamental errors on the field. Right, we have idiots playing in goal and sometimes at centre back, like legit idiots. And you guys are sat here acting like, woe is me, Chelsea have had this absolutely amazing season where everything's gone well for them, and woe is us, everything's gone really bad for us. That's not how.
No, by the way, I've not said that. You're saying, hold on. Have you not sat and said you're having a good season?
Bottom line, we should not be on the same points at this stage. If I said at the start of this season, 14 games into the season, Chelsea and Arsenal would be on the same point, and Chelsea will have a higher.
We agree. We agree. We're telling you.
Crazy.
Hold on. We're agreeing. I'm saying we've had a bad season so far, apart from the last 3 games since the international break. We've had a bad season. By the way, we have got a lot of tougher games, away games out of the way. As well.
Why have you had a bad season though?
Because I know Rom's made a joke.
They should be where we are. That's why they've had
Roms. I know they should be. But why? Why have you had a bad season? What's the reason? Because you haven't built. It's the exact point I made. No. You haven't built your squad well over the last 5 years.
Hold on. But you could make that case. Whatever you say.
I've been able to. What Rom said. Sorry, Gal. Rom's made a joke, and it's the whole Salah FC, Odegaard FC sort of thing. But I actually somewhat agree, and I'll back that thing of not Odegaard FC, but I think teams, when you get a certain level of player, especially a captain as well at the club, I agree. I think that they are sometimes fundamental in how you play.
Okay, so hear me out on this.
I don't think we could get a player. I don't think there's a player there that we can sign right now that would be willing to sit on the bench that could do what Odegaard does for us. All round.
So Giuseppe, hear me out on this then. Hear me out on this. So this is where I'm saying I don't think your squad building has been good enough, because Chelsea's best player before we signed Cole Palmer was nailed on Reece James. Reece James was made Chelsea's captain, put on our highest salary, right? In this new generation, he's getting paid more than anyone else at the club. He has barely touched the pitch since he's been a captain. Barely been able to put in the performances that we know he's capable of doing. And where are Chelsea in the league? Second, coping absolutely fine without their star player that we signed, that we put on a huge contract, and we're fine. Gusto's doing a good enough job because we bought the next level down as well.
I hear you.
Where are you without your captain?
Sorry, guys. Can I jump in for a second?
That's a point.
Can I throw a question in here though regarding this season? Because a lot of I want to throw this out to the panel. Maybe go to Pete with this first. I haven't heard from him in a minute before we speak about the Chelsea game, the Chelsea Spurs game. But a lot of Arsenal fans online have complained this season, not about the squad not being good enough per se, but Arteta's approach being too negative, and that actually, if they would have started with Nwaneri in the attacking midfield role, if they'd have let the handbrake off in that kind of 6-week period where Odegaard was out, they could have and would have won more games. So is it just about squad building for Arsenal, or could it have been the wrong approach from the manager for a few-week period that cost them as well?
I think it's definitely has to do with the manager's approach,
Pete.
And also the tactics going.
I definitely said Pete.
Oh, my bad.
You definitely did. It's all good, Igal. It's all good. I know. Look, Igal, I know when we're getting on this Arsenal conversation, you can't you obviously.
I love Igal, man. You're the best, bro. You're the best.
No, it's all good. It is absolutely down to squad building, and it's squad building in attacking areas. You need to freshen up the squad with new players, but the problem is that the players in the top end of the pitch have been so heavily relied on for so long that he doesn't want to deviate and go elsewhere. Like, he's worried about the reaction of Saka being on the bench for a game and starting somebody else instead. But actually, that's the best thing for Arsenal. That's what Arsenal need right now in order to build that squad. And it goes back to the point that Dan was talking about earlier with Chelsea. And I was going to mention something before, because I actually do think you are in a title race. And you know what? Despite what everyone else thinks, I actually think you've got the longevity this season because of the level of your squad. And people are talking about they're in Europe and all the extra games. You're in the Conference League. I'm sorry. You boys have got way more quality than anyone else in that competition and really should be winning it. And getting to those latter stages, you're going to be playing against slightly better teams, but they're not Champions League level teams. They're not even Europa League level teams. So your squad changes could still wipe the floor with these Europa Conference League players and teams and still be absolutely competitive in the Premier League. Look, you haven't even put Cole Palmer in that European squad. So that he is solely focused on Premier League football. And so therefore, as you get deeper into that competition, there's no reason why Chelsea can't fight on all fronts. And that is where Arsenal's problem is that they've got some squad depth in some areas, but they are light in others. And although people are kind of like laughing, joking with regards to Arsenal and Odegaard and all the rest of it, it is actually a genuine reality that without him, they are not the same team. It would be the same with Declan Rice. It would be the same with Saka. And that is where Arsenal...
No, not the same with Declan Rice. Stop.
Okay. I'm just using it as an example. You might just what I'm saying is those positions, those key positions, whatever you think those key positions are, those key positions haven't got adequate backups, and without
it hasn't been addressed.
You're having to play them week in, week out, and then you're having the same issue season upon season that they're burning out towards the end.
But guys, one second. This applies to Man City with Erling Haaland and Rodri. This also applies with Liverpool with Mo Salah and Van Dijk. Let's stop acting like
we're not talking about Man. There's a Man City fan on this panel.
Liverpool
Can we stop doing this thing? Can we stop doing this thing? Everybody has players. Everybody has players who carry the team and take them over the threshold. And if those players are out for a significant period for any team, you are going to have to struggle and you're going to have to weather the storm. Now, Martin Odegaard was out, and we seen that Arsenal, for a couple games, we beat PSG, we beat Tottenham, we beat Aston Villa, and we suffered. Now, after a while, we had to continue to go through that suffering, and eventually we started dropping points. Now, I am not putting this whole season being a little poor on Odegaard being injured. I'm not saying
that. I'm saying strength in depth over the course of a whole season is where some of these players missing or dropping in form because they played a lot of minutes. Some of them are playing week in,
it's
week
also
out,
on the manager
and not. Sometimes that's where you need to freshen up the squad and have an alternative. But what I'm saying is that Arsenal don't have that all over the pitch. Whereas, and this is my point. This is my point. It's not necessarily to Arsenal. I'm saying what Arsenal don't have is what Chelsea do have. Is that, yes, it might not be the Cole Palmer level, but João Felix can definitely produce moments that can win them games and continue that role. You've got Nkunku, who hasn't found his best form, but is still a top-level player.
I think we're in an awkward
stage.
I don't think that level. I don't believe it.
I think, bro, I think this season we've been at a little awkward stage because I think when, like, I know you said about selling Smith Rowe, and by the way, I'm looking at it and I think maybe that was a mistake, but I do think, and he should have maybe trusted him. He should have maybe trusted him more this season, but I do think it's like we can't sign a player for Odegaard replacement and that because Nwaneri is that player. And it's just he's still a little young this season, and I think next season but you can't sign someone just for one season.
Bro, I agree with you, but that's where you went wrong because in the title race, there's no time for waiting. What Pete's basically saying, I understand what you're saying. If you lose your
team, no team in football has the rest for every player.
You're not understanding. You're not understanding what we're saying, right? You're saying if your key players are out, you're going to have a drop in form. But what we're saying is, if you had more quality and depth, that would compensate for that player being out.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant because if you have a good manager, he finds a solution.
Wait, Gal, so are you suggesting that Arteta isn't a good manager?
I'm saying Arteta made mistakes and he should have done better versus Bournemouth. He should have done better versus Southampton.
But was he not able to do? If he
should have done better in those games.
Yeah, okay, I hear you, right, and you should have done better in those games. If he'd have built his squad better with Edu, and he had players that could replicate the role that certain players do or are similar to, do you think he would have done better in those games? Like if Odegaard had gone, but you could have played Smith Rowe or someone of a similar quality to Smith Rowe that you bought in the summer, could you have done better?
Smith Rowe asked to leave. Arteta granted his wishes. Number one.
Okay, so but let's swap it, right? Say you lost someone in midfield, you're sixth, right? Partey can come in and cover. Say Partey then gets injured. You can then put Jorginho in. He can do a very similar role. Should you not have that? Like Pete said, you got Rice. You can lose Rice. You can play Partey like you can play Jorginho. Should you not have that example all over the pitch if you want to fight on all fronts against the team that are as capable as Manchester City have been in recent seasons, or now Liverpool and Chelsea on the up?
We got Trossard that can play it. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, you
we
do.
Got Trossard that can play it, right?
But do you need 3 or 4 more players of the similar ilk to Trossard?
I get you. And once again, from an Arsenal fan, from an Arsenal fan's point of view, what I've seen in certain games, I get the reason this season is how it is in that position because once again, it's Nwaneri. He is the guy, and it's just a little bit more.
Yeah, but Roms is bang on, by the way. You just don't have time to wait in a title race to bring those players through. You just don't have time.
Once again, you don't have time, but once again, it was a little one like for the long period that Odegaard was out.
But if you bought a 28-year-old to do that job and rotate whilst he's injured, you then still have Nwaneri at 19.
Who's rotating right now for Rodri for Man City? Who's rotating for Mo Salah?
They've signed loads of players. They've not been good enough for Gal.
But that's also, but that's a criticism of City right now. And if Liverpool were to lose Salah and there's no one to step in and replace him, Liverpool fans will criticize the squad building. Look, we could spend all day on this, but we have got to move on to other subjects here that are legitimately. I want to do a few super chats as well first. AFC Singh says, hate all you want. Arteta added the Plan C Pula style to already Plan B Pep style and Plan B Jose style. It's just brilliant. We just need the trophies now.